A very good morning to all the participants, dignitaries, and the chief guests of our today's session. I welcome you all to the 1 week online FDP program on finite element analysis in research perspective, organized by Department of Mechanical Engineering from CVR College of Engineering. I welcome you all again. Because of the time constraint, we are limiting ourselves for welcoming you and introducing our special guest and speaker of the day. I welcome Dr. Harikumar Oruganti Garu, Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering from NIT Warangal to the session. Good morning, sir. Dr. Harikumar Oruganti Garu is Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering, NIT Warangal, and also Associate Dean Academics of NIT Warangal. He is also a founder member of Center for Holistic Development of Human Consciousness, CHDSC, member of Governing Board and Amma Social Welfare Association, an NGO, and he has acquired his PhD from IIT Kanpur in 2009, and he has finished his master's from Usmania University College of Engineering in 2003. He has been an experienced person as a researcher as well as a teaching member from various IITs throughout India. And he has also joined NIT Warangal in 2012, and he's been serving NIT Warangals ever since. And some of his research areas are in advanced design aspects of mechanical engineering, isogeometric and finite element analysis, geometric modeling, robot kinematics, robot motion planning, and also other research areas related to mechanical engineering. He has also published 50 international journal and conference papers, including a book. And he has also executed 2 funded projects related to his research. And he has 3 PhDs who has completed under his guidance. And there are 3 more in progress. He also has many accolades in his cap, and one of that is National Doctoral Fellowship, and he has also acquired BHEL Research Fellowship Award and URC Postdoc Fellowship Award also. And he has delivered 100+ talks in workshops or FDPs on topics like computational research with MATLAB, finite element analysis, optimization methods, and robotics. And he also conducted many workshops and FDPs related to these also. Not only just he has limited himself to the technical aspects, but also on human values, student induction programs, and inspirational talks on corporate social services and parenting for various audience. And he has many distinctions in his career. Firstly, he has established computational research lab in NIT Warangal, and he also published his first paper in prestigious international journal of computer aided geometric design from India. So I welcome you, sir, and we are very honored to have you in this session as the chief speaker, and we will acquire or we will gain as much knowledge as you spread us throughout the session. Thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Am I audible? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, maybe you can stop this presentation. I'll start.
Sure, sure, sir. You can share your screen now, sir.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. So good morning, everybody. So this is the first lecture of this 1 week program and finite element analysis. So we'll be focusing more and more on the research angle of this finite element analysis, and largely, in fact, the simulation related technologies. This is very, very obviously important. Many of you know it. Many of you are faculty members. So I don't want to, do too much introduction on why this is important and why we should take this seriously and all. Right? I'm not getting into those things. You know many of these basic things anyway. So I'll straight away start with emphasizing certain new things that are very latest as 2020, 2019, 2018, like that's are happening in last 2 or 3 or 5 years that I feel are going to take off in a big way, and that will have a big impact on how we actually do mechanical engineering, how do we teach mechanical engineering, and further how do we research mechanical engineering, right? What mechanical engineering of a notion we have now, we used to have some time back, and what it is going to be in the future. So some of those aspects I want to first emphasize. So thing is like why I'm emphasizing that part to start with is that, when you see what we have assembled here to understand the finite element analysis, but finite element analysis itself is a part of something big. So if you want to appreciate something, a bigger system than that, we have to understand anything has a value. Anything has a value only when you understand its role in a bigger system than that. Like a teacher has a value only when it goes and works, in an organization is bigger than, one individual entity. A chair has a value when, somebody sits on it. So like that, this where does this finite element analysis comes into picture? What is the bigger picture where this, finite element analysis fits in? So that's what I'm going to emphasize in this session. So I'm going to take one more session. That's where I'll get into the actual finite element analysis, the mathematical details and all, which in fact, anybody can, read straight away from textbook. So many online courses, such things are available. You don't need actually, a one person hand holding you and then teaching such kind of things, right? So that's why I'd like to speak from my experience and some things I feel are very relevant now. So before I start, right, so this is an online class, it, right? How difficult it is to feel engaged and deliver a lecture which gives you some satisfaction. uh, Audience have all the freedom the speaker doesn't have, right? So you guys have connected, whether you're listening, whether you're sitting at one place, driving or doing whatever, we have no clue. So at least I want to make sure that, some guys are there. So I would like to know, otherwise also I would like to know the audience. When you go to an audience, so it's important that we know what actually they're standing, what is their background. So I'll just spend about 5 minutes in knowing you. So I request some of you to unmute yourself and introduce what's your name, where are you coming from, what are your research interests, right? What kind of subjects you teach, or what kind of things you have done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is Dharmendra Kumar Madhukar, and from Surendra. I'm working as an assistant professor in Surendra Institute of Engineering and Management, Siliguri, West Bengal.
Okay, nice.
Currently, I'm working. I'm pursuing PhD in composite material.
Okay.
And I also actually I'm working as experimental work, but I'm trying to correlate with my finite element analysis of my work
Okay.
in ANSYS only. So based on that only, I want to learn the FE.
Very good. Very good. So you have registered for the correct FDP, and at the right time you are learning this. So I wish you really good success.
Okay,
so I've
you,
been to Siliguri. I took that meter gauge train is there, right? So
yeah, yes,
yeah, I took that train and goes to deep forest. That itself is a very engineering marvel, right?
Yes.
How it goes backward and forward, right?
Yeah,
So that was
this is the only place where we can see the three sides of the track, railway track.
Yes. Yeah. So that was very interesting when I came to Siliguri. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good morning. I am Dr. Zahir Hassan from Nawab Shah College of Engineering and Technology,
sir.
Hyderabad.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good
Please
morning.
go on, sir.
I am Dr. Zahir Hassan
Yes.
from Nawab Shah College of Engineering and Technology. I did PhD from IIT Delhi from 2002 to 2007.
Okay.
During that time, the ANSYS was not so much popular.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we learned regarding the abacus.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through the abacus at that time. But after my PhD, I am working as a faculty and administration itself. Working as the head, dean and director. Right now, I'm
Oh.
working as a director research in
Oh,
offshore condition engineering technology.
yeah.
So I forget the abacus which I learned during that days. So I
Yes.
need that answers for
Yeah.
my work itself and for my research students.
Okay,
So I
great, sir.
found that one. So I try to register and try, and even I will try to join all lecture, but it
Sure,
is
sir.
difficult for me because I am working as a senior
Yes,
position. So
yes, yes.
I will try, but I will try my best.
Yeah. So happy to see you, sir. You are such a senior person and still interested in learning and registering. So thank you. Very happy to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So those who cannot speak, some constraint, you can type also in the messages, but others can unmute and introduce yourself. So good to see. We have somebody sent message, Professor Uka Tarasidia from Gujarat. Right. Nice to see people from very far off places that is the power of online medium, right? Anybody can join from anywhere. Yeah, please. Can I have some more people introduced?
Morning, sir. My name is
Good
Akhil.
morning.
So
Hello. Akhil.
actually, I'm pursuing my PG in Kerala.
Oh,
So
okay.
I have been working.
Hmm.
I've been in the industry for about a couple of years. So
Okay.
I have worked for aircraft designing as well as its analysis also. So I'm looking forward to this session to enhance my knowledge as far as I'm concerned. So since due to this COVID-19 situations and all, I have just tried to pursue my master's. So I need to be completed by 2022. That is next year. So I'm hopeful to gaining some knowledge through this web sessions and all.
Okay. So this is your master's is in which specialization?
Actually, it is in thermal engineering. So
Okay.
basically,
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. Yeah, some more people. Anybody can unmute themselves and introduce. Professor Sheikh Mohammed from Anandpur sending a message. Hello, sir. Yeah, please.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I am Nihal Pandey.
Yeah.
Sir, pursuing ME from, in Advanced Production Systems from Samrat Ashok Technological Institute, Vidisha, MP.
Mm.
And so my research interested is additive manufacturing. And based on that, I am working on my recent projects in the final year also, like study of process parameters for the fuse deposition modeling printer, sir.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
In
sir.
fact, the
And,
part I'm going to talk about immediately, you will like it. Yeah, continue.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, because FEA is definitely going to help me. That's
Yeah. Yes. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, some more people. Do you want to introduce? Anybody who has a connection with NIT Warangal? Just curious. Anybody?
Sir, good morning. This is Dr. Suresh from the NIT
Yeah.
Warangal.
Hi.
Celarasa student.
Oh, I was expecting somebody. Nice.
Satish sir batch. Satish batch.
Okay. Oh,
So
Satish.
I'm working in
recently.
Chaitanya Deemed University, sir, as a research faculty.
Where is it?
It is our Hanmakonda, sir. Hanmakonda.
Oh, here it's. But
Kishanpura.
do they have engineering also?
Sir? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
really? Do they have an engineering college as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Six.
Oh,
Six. Yes,
No,
sir.
I didn't know that. Okay, I
We
didn't know
also
that.
didn't know that, sir, in college.
Ah.
But when I applied last summer, they recruited me as assistant professor for only for research purpose. They are going to assign 2 or 3 students minimum.
Okay, very good.
They
Very good.
shortlisted
Okay.
10 for mechanical engineering.
Mhm.
All departments like science groups, pharmacy groups, and it is a big university.
Yes.
So I need to guide some students in this
Yeah.
this stress analysis or any thermal analysis, static analysis kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to take thermal people and design people also. Basically, I'm from manufacturing engineering. Though.
Okay.
So,
Nice. Very good. Thank you,
sir.
Suresh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe one more person. After that, we'll start. So we have Professor. Yeah, we have Professor Denny CD, Assistant Professor at Kerala University Engineering College, Thrissur, Kerala. Presently teaching machine design. Thank you. Yeah, quite a few people from far places as well. Yeah. So maybe now I'll start.
Sir,
Yeah, somebody wants to speak, please.
Sir, this is Dr. Kishore Kumar.
Yeah, Kishore, tell me.
Sir, we have 2 participants from USA, 2 participants from Ethiopia.
Oh, great. So you have some secret formula. You are able to get so many people. Kishore. Nice.
Thank you, sir.
That's nice. Yeah. We'll
Sir,
learn
now
from
you
you.
can cut.
Yeah. Good. Difficult to get participants these days, right?
Yes, sir. Within a span of 28 hours, we could register. We could get registration numbers of 250 plus.
Nice.
So
Very
within
good.
28 hours, we have closed the registrations.
Wow. Very happy to see this. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You can continue, sir.
Okay. So is the presentation visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So anybody want to stop and speak at any time, you can raise a hand or unmute and speak, right? That's absolutely no problem, right? I don't want to be like a monologue or monotonous, right? If you find something is missing, something is not audible, anything, you can please speak, right? Please feel free to interrupt. So before we get into the finite element analysis part, so as I said, let us look at a big picture where finite element is one part of it, right? Let us look at the big picture. The big picture is design. That big picture is designing something. Ultimately, in mechanical engineering, or for that matter, in any engineering, we are going to come out with a design for a given need. There is a requirement, there is a specification of a particular need. To fulfill that, we are going to come up with a product, a design. The product can be is very a simple thing like a pen, or a big thing like an aircraft, or it can be as simple as a chair to sit, right? It can be a design of engine case, or a bolt or not, anything, right? Basically there is some requirement you are designing. Now the thing is that, so in the total process of the design, finite element analysis comes as one step, one technology to address one particular task of analysis. But let us look at the design itself, how it is changing, right? So there is a paradigm shift in the recent time, in not even less than 10 years back, right? So we're just talking about within last 5 or 6 years. So there is a new paradigm shift in how the design, how do we design things, right? It can be as simple as a bicycle, or it can be a car or aircraft, or for that matter even building. The concepts of the design are borrowed by these architects as well, in fact. So I'm just showing you, first of all, to motivate, I'm just showing you one example. Let me take a pointer. So this is a structural node, like it's some sort of a structural element. You see these cables, or electric cables, or the telephone cables running from one pillar to other pillar. So you have to tie the cable at one end, right? And then tie the cable at the other end, between two pillars, right? So we call that as a node, a structural node, right? So traditionally, the nodes that are designed by human designers used to be something like this, which you have seen. So there is a provision to tie a cable like this, right? And many such cables we have to do it. So we have a provision like this. So it has certain strength and certain weight. Now question is, is this the best? So when I ask the question best in what sense? In any design, what is best, right? Without compromising on the performance. What is performance here? If I install this node on a pole, right? When the ropes are tied to it, there is some force applied and some tension. It gets subject to some tension. Under that, it should not bend. And like this, it should go on for several years. So that is performance for us, right? So that is performance for us, right? That is performance for us. So without compromising on the performance, can we reduce the weight of it? Why do you want to reduce the weight? Because the weight directly is proportional to the cost of the product. The cost, obviously, we want to minimize. We always want to minimize the total material, right? Thereby the weight and thereby the cost without compromising on the performance. So can we say this is the best design? May not be, right? If this is not the best design, what can be, an alternate design to this? How can we come up with an alternative design, right? So that is where these computers are coming into picture. So let us say there is some technology, so which is trying out. What you specify is, I need such and such requirements. Okay, I need a provision to tie a rope or a cable. Let us say 4 cables or 5 cables like that, and a minimum of this much force it gets subjected to. Under that, the deflection should not be more than this. Such kind of specifications you do it, and you let the computer do the job, not a human. So if you let the computer do the job, something like this can come out as an output, you see, right? Now, can we think of such crazy design? Looking at the topology, that shape, the form of it is so crazy, right? Right. So a human being cannot think of such design if it's just left to us. But then if you just test it, it does the same job, right? It still can take as much the force the first one takes, but the weight of it is just 1/4 of the first one. By volume, it is 50% less. So imagine how much cost we can save. But the thing is that how is this even possible for a computer to do this? What kind of technology goes behind in coming up with this kind of design? That is one part. Then one part we will discuss in this talk. That is one. The second one is, okay, let's say such technology is there and we can come up with such things, but then ultimately it is not for showing as a digital model, right? What is the challenge? What will be the challenge? Even if I come up with the design, is it okay, or are there any challenges? Can somebody answer? Let's say I come up with this design, right? What challenges will face?
Might be the design will fail. Might be the design will fail.
For the failure, it is already checked.
Manufacturing.
Exactly.
problem.
Exactly. No, the design, it's already checked, sir. I mean, we are sure that it works. The failure part is already taken care. Right?
Sir, manufacturing.
Yes. Yes. So the main issue is manufacturing. How can we make such a crazy looking a product? Right? The traditional manufacturing methods will not be able to make such product, except maybe in casting you can come up, but there also it will be very complex to come up with these things. So this is the reason, even though we had at a conceptual level, up to some extent, it was possible to do. It was possible to design such a things, something like 10 years back, 15 years back. Right, but still these things were not popular. They were not adopted by the industry, or not accepted as a technology, because the manufacturing is the most difficult thing. But now that it's possible, why this is possible now? What technology is making this possible?
3D printing.
3D printing, artificial
3D printing.
Yes.
and to some extent
Yes. So it is the additive manufacturing, whether you call it, 3D printing or rapid prototyping, these things, all of them we put together and call them as additive manufacturing. So additive manufacturing is a disruptive technology in mechanical engineering, probably one of the biggest, disruption in the mechanical engineering, for so many decades, probably more than a century, the basic manufacturing method in the beginning was like casting. Casting is a very low tech technology, right? When you want the change in the shape of a material, a raw material is available in certain form and you want change in the form. So we always felt that to get the required change in the shape, in the geometry, we felt that we had to remove the material wherever it is not required. So that is material removal process, right? Or we have to completely work by changing the phase of the material, that it is in the solid phase. We have to convert into liquid phase and pour it in the mold. Then we can get in whichever shape you want. These were the two things we have thought. We never thought that we can grow the material. In the nature, if you observe the nature, how a tree is getting grown, tree is not assembled, right? A tree is not formed by first a big shape and then unnecessary things dropping down. It doesn't happen like that. It actually grows in a organical, in a natural manner, in an organic manner. So additive manufacturing is something like that. It is, the inspiration is by that. Why don't we add the material, whatever required material, rather than going for subtractive process or the material removal process? So that is made possible. In the initial days, it was only with certain kind of plastics and polymers, but now it can be done even with the metals. And that is what makes this technology feasible now. Earlier, it was not even feasible. So I just want to give a broad view of the current trend or the current things that are going on. For example, let's say you want to design a chair, right? The technology I'm talking about. So this technology even can come up with a chair like this, right? So this looks more organic, as if it is designed by nature, right? And it weighs much less than a traditional one, right? Takes much less volume, but performance is same or the better than a traditional one. In fact, let's say very simple thing. Let's say somebody even with several years of experience, let's say asked to design a table, a simple table or a bench. We simply start with straight lines, right? We cannot think of extremely complex things. We start with straight lines and come up with something like this, a human design. But then let's say you let a computer to do it. What actually you need certain area, surface area, flat surface where you want to put certain things. You define it and don't worry about what will be the shape of it. You let the computer or a computer method to decide for it. And then it may come up with a design like this, like where you see very different shaped legs, right? Or it may even come up with something like this, where this is in two parts. In fact, I felt that something like this may be a good idea when you two adults and two children are eating. They require a little lesser height table and see the kind of support. This thing, they look more organic, like a tree support. But these designs we cannot, human mind cannot think of these designs, right? Again, different types of models are compared here. Model one is a traditional one with a solid bar for a stand. Like here you have something called a lattice design, and this is what we call as a wall design, right? It's more close to the nature, and a lot of artificial intelligence technologies are used. And that weight of the third one is, you see the weight of the first one is about 10 kgs, and this is just close to 3 kgs, right? How can we come up with these kind of designs, right? So I just want to again correlate with the nature. See, when we want to build something like a house, something like a tent, we immediately think of this. But what nature is doing is it is trying to build something like this. And how why do we go with this option, with the first option? Because we already have a lot of things going on in our mind. It's like, all of us, many of you are faculty, many of you are students and administrators. When we revise a curriculum, the moment somebody talks about a new subject, immediately what goes on in the mind? Who will teach this subject? Oh, if I have to teach this subject, I have to prepare, right? What will happen to the subject I was handling, right? I'm just putting a yeah, I think somebody has to mute. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, right. Immediately, when we are coming up with something new, let's say we are revising the curriculum, right? So some BOS member or somebody says that drop this subject or add this subject, immediately what will happen? We'll think of our comfort zone, right? What we have been doing, right? Already doing, what you got used to it. So that actually limits our thinking. So the materials we use is, clay, stone, wood, metal, leather. These are the traditional methods, traditional materials we used to use. And manufacturing method was largely material removal, whether it is, turning, milling, slotting machine, drilling machine, whatever, all of them are material removal methods. So with these materials and material removal as the predominant manufacturing method, we were not able to think of things which are very complex in nature, which are close to the evolutionary designs that the nature designs. But thanks to so much advancement in the materials, we have now polymers, alloys, composites, aerosols, and nanomaterials. With the availability of all this, and more than all of it, the additive manufacturing, the breakthrough technology of additive manufacturing now makes it possible to come up with designs like this. Okay, as I said, now that let's keep the option that this additive manufacturing is there, you can make things in a different way. And that if you keep this in the mind, our design process itself will be quite different, right? So it's like this, a traditional bracket, a support structural element used to be like this, but now for the same function, right, with respect to the strength and what kind of loads it takes, with the same thing, we can come up with a design like this, which is, very crazy as such compared to what a human can design, right? So these kind of designs are coming, right? So for some examples that this technology, so by the way, I think I've not mentioned the name of the technology I'm talking about. So this is called generative design, right? Generative. I think I better type it here. I'm just typing the name here. Yeah. So here you're trying to generate a design. You're coming up with a generation, like you're generating the design rather than having some design already in the mind. So the technology is designed such a way, the technology itself is such a way that what you actually mention is what you need. Like you want this particular, let's say, structural element to be fixed here and some load will be applied here. What should be the shape of it? So that is how you pose the problem. You don't come up with a design on your own. So it is up to the generative design technology to give you some 100 solutions, 200 solutions. No, it's like this, you go to a shop, right? For shopping, let's say you're going for a shopping of a shirt or a pant. So what do? You go there and specify your budget and ask you what is the size, and says that whether you want formal or casuals, right? Like that, some 2-3 specifications you give. Immediately the shopkeeper, the salesperson is showing you some 10 designs. From the 10 designs, you pick, a 3 and say that, do you have anything similar to this, anything similar to this? And that's how you make a selection, right? Similarly, here, can we have a technology where you specify what is required by you and let the technology present you with, many possible solutions, and from those solutions, the task of the designer would be pick a solution and evaluate whether this is good, whether something else is good. So that will be the task of the designer, rather than now coming up with the solutions. It will be that the task will be selecting the provided provided solutions. Right, I'm just showing some examples. Now you can see how the chassis of an automobile also, still taking the same amount of loads, providing the same amount of strength, but then the material is cut down in a very, very significant way. In fact, this is one case study by Autodesk. Autodesk is a company, it makes the popular AutoCAD software. So we have many of these partition walls in an aircraft. These are partition walls in an aircraft. Many such partition walls are used in an aircraft. So this used to be plain, completely filled with the material. Earlier, it used to be like that. But using this generative technology, right, they came up with designs like this. So that has reduced something like a 30 kgs weight of total media, whatever earlier it used to be. Now, if you use these kind of partition walls, it reduced in 30 kg weight. Now that may look, not big, but if you count in a year, how many hours, how many times this aircraft works, because of this reduction of the 30 kgs, how much, the fuel cost is saved. If you just calculate it, I've taken this from the Autodesk and some YouTube videos that they have made. So this comes out to be, it is like taking 96,000 cars in a year. In a year, the number of times it flies, and if you save the marginal saving of the fuel, it is equivalent to taking 96,000 cars off the road. Right, that kind of pollution, that kind of fuel, that kind of emissions you are saving. So saving of the material, saving of the cost is directly reflects on these benefits. Okay, so again, further a philosophical angle to this is this. So just observe how things are getting designed, how things are getting grown, in the nature. In a year one, after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, a tree is like this. Now just observe which parts are getting strengthened, or which parts are getting fatter, where the more and more volume is getting added, more material is getting added. So first tree will come up with some shape, and then wherever it gets subjected to higher stress, so that's where there will be more and more addition of the material. Just observe, if there is some more stress on one side, the stem needs to be stronger to balance all this. The stem first becomes bigger, certain branch will become bigger, then the sub branches like that. So there is an idea, there is an approach in the design of the nature, that wherever there are more stresses, you add the material there. Now let us get inspired by this process of the nature. Similarly, you observe, see, we have the bones, the entire design of the skeleton of the human. So these are, such a strong, structural elements, right? Our bones, once they are designed, they are lasting for 60 years, 70 years, 80 years with all kinds of loads and all. If you look at the design, you can see how nicely, they were evolved. And now can we take inspiration from it and design, in that way? For example, there is the Shinkansen, that is the bullet train of the Japan, that they say it is inspired by the beak of the kingfisher. So similarly, if you just take this robot, the flexible links, flexible robot, you see so many activators are there, and it is so many joints are there. But the same is there with the elephant. Elephant doesn't have a separate hands, but still so much of manipulation it can do, very comfortably. That is because it is almost has infinite degrees of freedom in the trunk. So to handle things like flexible things like ball, or things like capsules, right, such flexible manipulators are used, right? So these are all inspiration taken from the nature. So apart from this, the generative design technology I'm talking about. So I would like to show one case study here. So I'll just click on this, and there is one small video, just a minute or so. How the generative design technology is it visible? I am now sharing my Google Chrome. Is it visible? Can somebody confirm? Hello.
Sir. Sir, we could see only this generative design slide.
Slide. Okay, I'll stop sharing and again share. Yeah. Okay. What is visible now? Somebody confirm.
Yes,
This
Chrome.
Yeah, Chrome. Thank
Autodesk.
you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to run a small video and show a case study where this generative design technology is used. You know, traditionally we have these things where the seat belt gets locked, right? Right. So traditionally we have this kind of arrangement where there are so many components put together make one mechanism. In place of that, so whatever this black part you see, it is a single part. So many parts are, you know, taken away, right, just by this one component. Let me run it again. So these many parts were there. So it is replaced by one single structural element, like this. And this was generated using the technology I'm talking about, a generative design. So not only saving the cost, saving the material, but even reducing the number of parts. Imagine the mechanism that are on the left side is replaced with this one is now discarded and this is introduced. So this is just designed by the computer technology, that is generative design technology. So where you just specify that, see, I need a provision to fix it at the bottom. Okay, that provision is given here, and similarly here also, and certain amount of load that gets applied here, certain amount of load that gets applied here, and this entire thing should not break, should not deform beyond that certain limit. So just by specifying that much, what is the best design that is possible, in what least material, you know, I can provide this solution. So with just posing of the problem, we are able to come up with, you know, this technology. Now the thing is, how are we able to come up with these things, right? So I just want to put the things in perspective, that so this entire domain of computer aided engineering, where this CAD, finite element, optimization, you know, for that matter, in fact, many things related to CAM and I do not manufacturing, but all these simulation based technologies, they fall under this big domain called CAE, computer aided engineering. So some part of the mechanical engineering, which can be done by the computers itself using simulations, that is usually referred to as CAE by the industry, right? So this finite element technology itself, if you see, though it has origins in 1950s itself, but it's only in 1960s and after that it got matured. And engineers have, initially it started as some mathematical subject, just as a numerical method which can solve, you know, partial differential equations. But later the engineers have found that it can be used in the stress analysis and in studying many physical phenomena. So that is when this method has become popular. And now it looks little counterintuitive. So, but the CAD technology has come much later than the finite element. Actually, in the design process, first CAD comes and then the finite element, right? Because you have to model a component and divide it into subdomains, that is meshing, you do it, and then only you go for the finite element. But the technology evolution, if you see, the CAD the main CAD technology is Bezier and B-splines things. So these B-splines and all proposed by, you know, Cox and De Boer and such scientists, you know, sometime in 1980. So before that itself, finite element method has come. So in the finite element method, people used to model it with simple triangular elements and quadrilateral such elements. Later, the CAD technology has come. So it means we are talking about something like, a 50-year-old technology, which is very standard technology. Some technologies you should not say as old or anything, because some technology will stay for long, because that is a standardized things. So similarly CAD. So this much was the CAE so far. I mean, till last decade, something like till 2010 or so. So this much was the technology. But then by that time, you see so many softwares are there. You have, SolidWorks, you have CATIA, you have Creo, you have ANSYS, right? Many such things, Abacus. So technology have matured, right? These days, in fact, most softwares are able to, in fact, or are able to model, analyze, do almost everything. So a sort of matured. What next beyond this? So that question was there. Around the same time, what more happened is that there is an exponential growth of computing power. See, what used to be a supercomputer about 20-25 years back, supercomputer, that kind of processing power is there in the phone now. This phone is faster than a supercomputer of 20-30 years back. That is the kind of growth that happened in the computational power. Not only growth happened, but the cost also gone down. This is a big revolution in the in electronics. The cost has come down. See, now how much a processor costs, how much a 16 GB or 1 terabyte disk costs. It is so cheap, right? And then all these things you don't even have to buy. See, you're taking pictures, right? Where are they getting stored? They are not even getting stored on your phone, right? They're storing in the cloud, right? So now you don't even have to have a big servers in your college, at your workplace. These things can be hosted. All of you are using, we are using Zoom. Where is this thing getting recorded? It is getting recorded in the Zoom cloud server, right? So this cloud computing has come. Internet of things. Earlier we has to measure things and bring the data and put it into a software and all, but now if you just plant sensors at wherever the important areas, the data can directly come into the software, and the software directly reads the data without any manual intervention. This is what is Internet of Things. So using all these technologies put together, so much of data got generated. Using the data, when we can make a machine learn from here. A machine can learn from here. For example, see, we learn so many things, right? Say you join a new office, first day you don't know anybody, you're okay, courteous and fine, but within 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, you look at behavior of everybody, whether everybody is coming on time or going on time, everybody is stressed, how everybody is sitting, is everybody talking in meetings or not. You keep observing all this, and you form an opinion of whether I should come on time, I should delay the things or not, where should I speak in the meetings or not. All these things you do it. Similarly, can we design an algorithm where it can learn how to do? For example, let us say, very simple problem I'll take. Let's say a cantilever beam is there, right? If I apply 10 kg load, how much is the deflection? I know from formula also. But let us say I don't have formula. 10 kg deflection, 10 kg load, this much is deflection. 20 kg load, this much is deflection. 30 kg load, this much is deflection. So this I can tell somebody, and then after that I can ask, okay, if a load of some 90 kg is applied, what will be the deflection? Right? Using various interpolation technique itself, you can say it. But similarly, you can observe some trends. What is going to happen? Right? These are all learning from data. People do this even in elections and such places where the large amount of data is available. Now, idea is, why can't we borrow these techniques and use them in simulations? Use them, in simulations. Not only in simulation, in decision making, even in decision making. So, for example, I'll tell you. This technology called digital twin. Let's say this is a technology that is already developed by General Electric and many other companies. So the technology involves, apart from the finite element, many other technologies are involved. So it goes like this. So you have, let's say, a component in the aircraft. The aerospace engineering division of General Electric uses this digital twin to monitor many components in an aircraft. Let's say there is some component in aircraft which is getting subjected to very high temperatures. So due to temperatures, a lot of stress gets developed. So based on what kind of design and what kind of material, it can sustain up to, up to some cycles of running. So let's say you implant a sensor there, and the same a digital model of that component you create in a computer in a cloud. So as the aircraft is running, what is going on there, I can now see it on my phone. What is the health, what is the condition of this particular component, and it is monitored not by a human being, by a software, a technology, a tool, and it can monitor it and can find out whether still for this particular material can it still run or not, right? And I can also even predict, okay, it is fine now, but looks like it is going to fail in 20 days, going in 30 days. Immediately I can even get an alert and be prepared to replace it, right? If I wait for it to get broken, right, and wait for the client to place the order and then make the manufacturing, a lot of time get wasted. So this one will help me in decision making. See, I'm making a decision here based on the data. So what all went here? Analysis technology, right? Data technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, IoT, all these technologies put together. We have taken these simulations into, very advanced level, and using these simulations to predict the things and reduce the time and reduce the cost. So that's how, a lot of this artificial intelligence and machine learning, technologies can be used in the design, and for that matter in many fields of the mechanical engineering. And these things are going to, develop in a big way. Why? There is something called quantum computing that is going to come up. It's going to almost make infinite level capacity of the processing available. And further, there is this natural language processing. As of now, if you want to tell a computer, you have to touch menu and do this thing here, that thing, still quite a bit of interaction in the language of the software. This thing is required, even in your phones also, though you speak it, that thing is getting typed, whatever you speak in the Google, but still, things are not yet operated by just by voice. If I talk in Telugu or if in English or Hindi, will my entire system understand? It doesn't yet, because a lot of natural language processing technologies are yet to get mature. So further advances in quantum computing, natural language processing are going to take this simulation technologies to very higher levels. So that is why we can no more stay away being traditional engineerings like mechanical engineering, civil, electrical. We cannot stay away from these technologies anymore, right? So these are very much there. So you may think that these are very futuristic and all that is these are all not going to come, but let me wait for a few more minutes. I'll tell you in where are these being used. Aerospace sector, automobile, power generation, right? So in the power generation, why there is a breakdown, why there is a power cut? Because there is something got dysfunctional. And how can we predict that dysfunctional thing and be prepared for it, right? Instead of reacting when it actually got broken. In the manufacturing, in the structural design, environmental pollution, in so many areas we can use these technologies. Okay, I'll skip that part. I'll come back. So just to show you whatever I'm speaking, not some blah blah stuff, it is actually happening. People are investing crores of dollars, not like rupees, dollars in it, and coming out with the new technologies. I'll just show you all the leading companies that are in this field, right? CAD, finite element, overall CAE field. So one of the leading companies is PTC. You all know PTC. What software they make? PTC. Do you have idea? PTC is known for which software, which CAD software? PTC is called, Parametric Technology Corporation. Hello, anybody? The PTC makes which software?
Sir, I think SolidWorks.
Creo. They make Creo, right? SolidWorks is made by Dassault Systems. Creo, okay. They make Creo, this CAD software. So within the Creo, so they are coming up with these technologies. How can we innovate faster with this generative design and AI technologies? So this, the grab of the, I visited some of these websites in the morning earlier also, I know it, but I just wanted to show you in the class. So you can see, what steps they are taking and what kind of additions they are doing to the doing to the software, right? PTC is doing it. Autodesk is doing in a very big way. In fact, they have been one of the first ones to embrace this technology of AI and generative design. So they have this software Fusion 360. So generative design for manufacturing with Fusion 360. This is also, again, I've taken from the their website. The screenshots are directly from their website. And similarly, there is one technology called Odyssey, right? This Odyssey. So Odyssey is made by one company called CAD LM, the CAD LM. So you can see here, I'm highlighting here. CAD LM is a small company in France, a French company. So this has become very successful, and they are using artificial intelligence, machine learning in simulations, so that you can do faster simulations and do a lot of predictive analysis. You can do it. So you can see here, Odyssey accelerates product design and development via real-time parametric simulations, optimization, machine learning, and AI tools. It uses, right, traditional simulations plus machine learning. That's a very good combination. So what happens is that when some new technology comes up by some smaller companies, these big companies acquire them. They acquire them. So it is good both ways, because being a smaller company, you cannot reach all the clients. You don't have a clientele, right? But similarly, being a big companies, you cannot innovate also, because you are so busy with running day-to-day things that innovation becomes so difficult for big companies. So these innovations happen in smaller places, and then the big companies, acquire them. So Hexagon, Hexagon is a mechanical engineering related company. So it acquired this Odyssey software is there, you can explore. And further, MSC software is also related to this. MSC software is the one which is actually now distributing or selling this, Odyssey technology. So similarly, though we have traditional finite element method, there are many challenges in the method. We'll discuss further. There are many challenges, right? It provides good results, pretty much it is the standard method for the analysis, but it has its own issues when it comes to complex geometries, right? And when it comes to the quick computations, complex geometries are very difficult to model. In fact, let's say in a industry situation where something like, let's say 50 hours are required for the entire analysis. So about 20 to 30 hours go in setting up the analysis, that is doing the meshing, repairing of the meshing. In that itself, a lot of time goes. Meshing is a huge bottleneck, right? Actual analysis, actual, computation and solving those, a large system of linear equations takes certain amount of time, but that is about 20-30%. But big amount of time goes in modeling, meshing, mesh repairing. So people have been exploring that how can we avoid this meshing process and do a quick analysis, even if it means little lesser accurate results. Let us say accuracy is not, even if it is 90% accurate, we are okay, but we want a quick analysis. So this was one of the challenges. So again, there is one small company, a German-based small company that's called, that they came up with this software called SimSolid, SimSolid. Right, so they came up with, and they were also very successful. It's a game-changing simulation software. Like, the results are not accurate, but it uses mesh-free methods. There is no meshing required here. But then the comparison is like unbelievable. Something which takes 10 hours in a finite element technology, it can do in something like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. That kind of technology it is. The results are not accurate as finite element, but many situations you're okay with it. See, if you have, let us say, 4 alternatives to compare, right? So you can do first one analysis in SimSolid, quickly compare and choose the better one. The one you chosen, the one or the two you have chosen, those you can do an accurate analysis in the finite element. But for the comparison itself, you may not need so accurate results. So this made a good addition, and Altair acquired it. So you can see here, Altair acquired the SimSolid. So now it is called Altair SimSolid. So this is structural analysis for rapid design iterations, right? So this can do, within just minutes. This is a new technology. Altair is a big company, HyperWorks, HyperMesh. These are the softwares they distribute, they make. They have come up with, and they are investing in a very big way in artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? And similarly, the ANSYS is one of the leaders in this finite element technology. So they are using again generative design and something called a topology optimization. They come together in this ANSYS called, they are now coming up, they have come up with this thing called ANSYS Discovery 3D simulation software. A regular ANSYS is there, but an addition to this is this ANSYS Discovery, where you discover a new solutions. So these are all directly taken from screenshot taken from the industry softwares. You can see how this is, this is very useful. This very useful in the sense directly saves the cost, comes up with a very efficient, quicker, very low cost designs. So who doesn't go for this? So that's why this is very much a relevant technology. So that's the picture I wanted to give it. So beyond this simulation and the technology, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, generative designs, all put together, taking entire this simulation to a higher level and coming with the better and better designs. So that's what I wanted to say. And considering that, many are from academics and all, I just want to mention that is a high time we also welcome these subjects and include them as elective courses or the core courses, and train our students in this technology. Particularly coming in Indian context, I can say that, see, when it comes to infrastructure development, the manufacturing technology, manufacturing facilities and all, we are not good. Like the China is doing really well, many other countries are really doing well. Our strength lies in doing something using computer, right? So from the early childhood to the schools and the colleges, there is so much emphasis on the maths, physics, these subjects. So all of this will be really useful. All that background will be useful if we focus more and more on simulation technologies. If we get trained in these technologies, which requires you to only have your brain and computer, this much, you are not dependent too much on the government or the society, entire society changing and providing a good infrastructure to work in these domains. And that is how this IT sector has so many jobs, right? That is how so many IT jobs have come to India. Similarly, even in the mechanical engineering, if you see what kind of jobs that have come from other countries to here, is all related to CAD, CAE, simulation related technologies. And very soon we are going to have, already there are, very soon we are going to have a lot more openings related to this. So a mechanical engineering now needs to be very good in mathematical background, statistical methods, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all such simulation technologies. If we take up this direction, and which many universities all over the world are taking up in direction, we will then be very competitive, and our guys will be able to get some good jobs also, and we will be on par with whatever that is going on. Okay, so that is my first part of the presentation. So if there are any questions, or we can have a discussion. This is very interesting topic, and then I just gave a broad view of the things which I felt that was happening in the industry. I mean, many of you are there who are seniors and have a lot of experience, right? So all of you, please free to share your views or your ideas related to this. After that, I'll have a second part of my presentation. Okay.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, thanks for this nice session, sir.
Yeah, it is.
So I am Dr. Chandrakumar from RV College of Engineering, Bangalore, sir. Ours is in college. And you rightly talked about the inclusion of all these newer concepts in curriculum, which many of autonomous colleges, including ours, are leading. So what I would like to tell is, can you suggest some small project ideas wherein students can take this up? and they get to know something, and also some softwares which we can, of course, people are talking of Python, MATLAB and all. So can you just throw some light on that, sir?
Just now I mentioned, sir, all these are softwares only. In fact, there is a addition. See, if you just take you take Creo, there is an possibility of doing these things in the SolidWorks also. There is a possibility in ANSYS also. There is this Odyssey I have just mentioned, all is there. So that's why I specifically mentioned all these major CAD CAE companies now have a facility, a separate facility based on this generative design, artificial intelligence based facilities in the simulation, how you can improve the design, or they have a separate software, right? So these are the things I already mentioned. I thought that is one thing. And as far as the project ideas is concerned, I'm going to talk about in the second part. But you already, if you see some of these technologies, if you just see in the scholar.google.com or in the general Google search related to the design of certain things, right? Topological optimization in the generative design. For example, let's say a very simple thing. Let's say you need fins to transfer the heat, right? You are talking about the design of anything for that matter, right? Fins we design. So how can we come up with a better shape, a topology of the fins using, let's say, artificial intelligence, this machine learning, right? Let's say like this. Let's say we are doing so many times the analysis, right? So can we now predict the results of analysis without doing the analysis? Can we predict results? Let's say even for a very simple cases, let us say deflection of beams, let us say, right? Beams of different end conditions, right? Can we predict the results without doing the analysis, just by going by the data?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So in the design domain, there are a lot of things are based on your area. Let us say you have a thermal background. So in the thermal, as I said, it can be fin, it can be heat exchanger, everywhere, wherever you're trying to design, wherever there's a geometry involved. So you can play with this thing and use this technology, come up with a better design.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please, anybody? Any questions, anything you want to add? These are all, see, I am also not an expert on these things. These are the things which I'm exploring, which I felt are very interesting. I felt I share with an academic community. So you also please feel free to share your views and let this be an exchange.
Dr. Hari, Dr. Zahir.
Yeah, hello, sir.
How I start myself, because I never showed the software before. So I have, even though I forgot the abacus itself.
Okay, I think, sir, like first we can start with some regular course on Coursera, maybe. See, first of all, yeah, I think I should have shown you one slide. Anyway, I'll just summarize it. So basically, anybody who wants to work in these kind of areas, some core skills are required. Maybe I'll put up that slide which I skipped it. I wanted to, in fact, emphasize that slide. I have one slide, in fact. Yeah. So obviously, the whatever subject area where we want to work, whether it's manufacturing for you, thermal or design. So knowledge of subject area is something we need to have. There is no doubt about it, right? That is non-negotiable. You cannot have a poor idea of the subject and compensate it by all these fancy words, right? Like AI, ML and all. No, subject area has to be very strong. Otherwise, you cannot get your papers published. You cannot make any significant work. And then what you need is, good knowledge of mathematical or numerical methods underlying these things. For example, if you want to work in these technologies, right? So like you need to have good knowledge of partial differential equations, numerical methods, statistical methods, good mathematical fundamentals. And also we need to have good computer skills, that it is programming. Two things are possible. One is you are trying to create something, a algorithm on your own, in which case you need some programming knowledge. So it may be MATLAB for you, it can be Python for you, right? some programming knowledge is required. If you are using some already existing software, let's say like ANSYS or Creo or such things, then a good grip over that software is required. So these three things are required. These three things are non-negotiable. So usually, through an undergraduate curriculum, we are preparing a student with all these three things. So you have Maths 1, Maths 2, Maths 3. Usually, at least 3 subjects of math are there in any most engineering curriculums, and the subjects are there anyway. The core courses of the curriculum take care of these things. And then this aspect, usually we don't emphasize so much in traditional engineerings like civil, mechanical, electrical. We don't emphasize so much on this thing, but thanks to all this popularization of technologies, but now I guess everybody is emphasizing very well on the programming side also. So, but then to check whether I have enough expertise on this thing, so I usually suggest this to my students also, right? If I'm able to reproduce the result of a published paper, you take up a good paper from a reputed journal, take up a paper from a reputed journal of your field, of your liking, of your area, right? Take it. And if you can reproduce those results, right? Because you don't have to come up with a new idea there, right? Already the idea is there, it is implemented, these results are there. Now, can you reproduce those results? If I can reproduce these results, that means I am prepared for the research. I can do the research. This is the check, reality check, right? So, when we teach our children, we tell them, right? So let's say they are cleaning the house. Let's say in the lockdown, all of us are doing, household work also. Let's say you are asking them to how to mop the floor. You mop it and show that and ask him to do it. Only when he's also able to do it, then it's not that he has to invent how to mop the floor. He can look at me, how I am doing it, and he also can do the same way, which means he knows it out. Similarly, the published paper is there. If I can reproduce the results of that paper, right, that means my academic preparation is good enough for doing the research, right? So this is what is our target in MTech and PhD, right? In the BTech, we don't focus. At the end of the MTech, or before, by the time you complete your coursework in the PhD, we are expected to be of this level. Otherwise, we'll still be struggling through the halfway or even beyond the halfway of the PhD also. If our preparation is not strong during the MTech and is not strong during the coursework of the PhD, it's very casual, coursework, and we're not emphasized on problem solving and all, then we won't be able to work on this area, for that matter, any research area also. But as far as computational research is concerned, we have to get hold of this mathematical methods, numerical methods part, and programming or the software part, and the subject, assuming that the subject knowledge is already there, then we'll be good to go. So what I suggest is that maybe based on your comfort, like let us say you can take a course on MATLAB or Python programming, which are available in the Coursera or so many FDPs that are going on. What we have to do is not just listen, right? So practice the things, implement the things, solve the assignments like a sincere student. Then only we can get hold of these things. And after we do that, either try to reproduce results of a paper, or let us try to do some project on our own, do a project on our own. Then only whether we have enough skills or not will be clear to us. So that's my suggestion. Somebody is asking email this thing. So in the last slide, I've already sorry. Yes, sir. Please, somebody is speaking. Please go on. No problem.
No, second thing, Dr. Hari, please share your view regarding which software is easy for mechanical engineer to learn.
Depends on what you're trying to do, sir. If you are trying to do CFD, it is different. If you're trying to do finite element, it is different. If you're trying to do something completely new, it is different.
As you mentioned just now, the software like Python and MATLAB.
Yes, sir.
MATLAB is easy or Python is easy? Just to start with one.
Actually, I don't have enough experience on the Python. I don't have enough experience in the Python. So with MATLAB, I've been using for, almost 2 decades or so. So MATLAB is very easy. Python is also very easy to learn, and these days it is more popular also. So it's up to you which one you go ahead. I think if you're planning to do a lot of AI and machine learning, it seems I myself is yet to explore into Python thing, but it seems that is more apt. The learning the Python, but MATLAB has its own advantages, right? It's more engineering oriented software, engineering and science oriented software. A lot of facilities are there. Okay, so based on which problem you choose, sir, accordingly you pick one. Okay, yeah, okay,
Sir.
yes,
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Sir,
Yes.
I'm doing research on the composite analysis, sir.
Okay. Yes.
Composite analysis.
Okay.
So which software should I prefer? Is it for delamination damages and all this?
I guess the answers will be okay for you, I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any further questions or discussion you want to have?
No, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah. So I'll stop this presentation, and I have another part which some of our research results I'll show. Not exactly in the generative design area, but something related to that area, largely that area. So there is this new technology called like finite element analysis technology. Like you have this new technology called isogeometric analysis. The way you have finite element analysis, now this is a new analysis technique called isogeometric analysis technique. And using that, not only doing the analysis, but we can do optimization of a shape. So we have done for very small things like some structural elements like beams and plates and such things, and one specific thing called acoustic horn. So that is what I'm going to explain. So here several things are there. I'm going to talk about a new analysis technique which is advanced than the finite element analysis. I'm going to talk about not only analysis, optimization of the shape, right, for a better material saving performance and all. And the case studies are, one is very simple basic structural elements. The last one I'll show is acoustic horn. I'll explain what is acoustic horn and all that. Okay. So let's say you have something like this. Okay. Something like this. This is a case where, you're applying, some loads this way and this way, the here also and the here also. And then, there is this square hole. What are you trying to do is optimizing the shape of this hole so that the material is less. So you want, it is getting subjected to certain kind of loading conditions, and to start with some geometry is there. So and there is an upper limit of stresses beyond which the stress should not be developed. So for that, what should be the geometry of this? So what we do in finite element analysis is this. So to change the geometry, what finite element has is, you have these junction points called nodes, and this entire thing, this quadrilateral shape, what you see is called elements. We have nodes and elements. So how can I get new geometry? By changing the coordinates of this mesh. So entire put together, you call it mesh. So I change the coordinates. I keep the coordinates here, I keep the coordinates here, I keep the coordinates here. I keep changing the coordinates and generate the new shape. So to start with, here you have this shape. Let's say I get hold of this node or this node and move it little up, move it little down, and find out whether is it better than the previous shape. Is it leading to some reduction in the material? Still performance is the same. Let me change little more, some more nodes. Is it leading to reduction in the material and still performing the same? So that kind of iterations we do. So this work what I'm going to present. What I'm presenting is a PhD work of one of my students called whose name is Dr. Vinay. So who defended recently, just last year itself, and our work came out so well. Now he's recruited by one German company, so which works in this analysis field. So they make this a software, a finite element software called OpenFOAM. So if you work in forming process of the metal forming process in manufacturing, so that actually involves a lot of plastic deformations, a lot of deeper finite element technologies. So since he worked in all these things, so the PhD students going to industry itself is very rare, right? I would not say very less. So one of my student went into that by working on these kind of problems. Anyway, coming back to the actual thing. So you play with the nodes and elements. So if you play with that, so since every node is free to go wherever it wants, it doesn't know where the neighboring node is, then it can lead to very awkward shape. You see, the shapes can be something like this, and this may cause into many other problems, like many manufacturing and other problems. So it becomes in a very irregular shape. So the idea to what can be an alternate to this is what we call is the isogeometric analysis. And moreover, apart from that part, as already I mentioned, so this meshing, geometry decomposition, that itself takes about half the time goes in this itself. So I'm trying to make how finite element is not good for the shape optimization, though it is a course on finite element analysis. So it is very good for many things, but one of the things that we want to do the optimization very iteratively, hundreds of times we have to do finite element analysis, because there is some geometry, I change the geometry and do the analysis, change the geometry, do the analysis. Like this, I try it iteratively so many times. Doing one analysis itself is complex. Now, if I have to do hundreds of times, then finite element technology has a limitation, right? So that's where we're going to come up. So these are some gaps in the literature, or as of now, whatever is. So it is not ideal for shape optimization. So why it is not ideal? Because the CAD model, the analysis model, the CAD model is different. It is built using the splines technology, B-splines technology, whereas the finite element model, that is the analysis model, is built using these finite elements, maybe just a triangular mesh or a tetrahedral mesh or a quadrilateral mesh, things like that. So these mesh, these two models don't talk to each other. You bring the CAD model, you mesh it, and you throw the CAD model. The CAD model is not there in the picture anymore. Now, if I want to change the model, I have to consult the CAD model or directly change the analysis. So this gap is there. This integration is not there between the modeling and the analysis. Okay. And that's where this technology came, called isogeometric analysis, where the idea is, completely different. Now it looks little obvious also. See, already you are using this B-spline technology to make any complex geometry, can be almost anything can be modeled. Why can't we use this B-spline technology itself for analysis also? Why do you have to go for finite element? Why can't we use the CAD technology itself for analysis? That was the idea. So using the same technology, same B-splines for modeling also, analysis also. Since both are same, we are calling isogeometry. ISO is same model is used for the modeling and the analysis. That's the idea here. So using these things, many applications people have worked out on how can we optimize the ship, ship hull and the ship design in many things, right? So I'm just showing you some applications of how can we optimize this hydrofoil shape, right, and generate multiple designs and all. So it's an emerging area. So there is no software for these kind of technologies I'm talking about. The isogeometric analysis is a new technology and is still coming up. Only in Abacus there is one plugin, just a plugin for isogeometric analysis, but things are still evolving. It is still in the academic circles where the research is going on. I'm one of the people who are working in isogeometric analysis, right, in the India. Right, very few are there who are working in these technologies, right? We just have to write our own code and do this analysis. I'm showing you some results how it can be done for a very simple cases. So I'm not getting into the lot of details, right? We completely use MATLAB to write this codes and come up with example. So very simple example, a cantilever, right, fixed at one end, and then load is applied on the, this entire edge. So for this kind of model, what is the best shape, right? The best shape that is possible. So we can just come up with a model using the B-splines and run through this isogeometric analysis and the optimization, and we come up with this model like this. So if you use a finite element, this is a very standard case, came up like this, and we produced a result like this, and we're able to reduce about 25% of the weight, right? I mean, this some numbers anyway. So again, similarly, a plate with a hole, the kind of case I showed in the beginning, right? What can be the optimal shape for this? So it has come. The good thing with the B-splines is that, so you don't get shapes like this, a whole shape like this, right? You always get a smooth shapes like this, which are easy to manufacture. The smoother it is, the manufacturing will be easy for it. More complex, just technology is there, it can be done, but the cost of it going to be, high, right? So this is another example of a spanner. So where we have used it to improvise the design. So this is the initial shape where we had this sharp corners, and this optimal shape we have got it, and total weight decreased by about 26% from the original design, right? These are some more cases where you have this fixed beam, and there is a load in the middle, and what can be the optimal shape for this, right? So some of the results on this, these are very basic shapes, and we just got it published in a journal, sometime back in 2017. One more difficult case where it is extremely sensitive, a little bit change in the shape is going to lead to a big impact on the performance. All of you have seen, in the older days, there used to be a mic in public functions. There used to be a sound input is given, and then there is a diverging mic where it amplifies the sound. So that's what is called horn. Even now also you can see traditional horns where you press that balloon kind of thing, and then there's a sound coming out. We call it as a horn. So we call it an acoustic horn. So what will be the sound of it all depends on what this shape. How is this shape? If the shape is not proper, then you get noise. So there is a wave that is given as input. So there is one wave that is going on inside. The wave diverges like this, and it goes on, and in the process it gets amplified. That's what is called acoustic horn. So coming up with a nice shape acoustic horn. So we call, if the wave is not going out, but some part of it is coming back, then we call it impedance. So basically, when you increase the volume of a speaker, within the speaker, though speaker is a box outside, but you open it and see, and then there is a umbrella kind of thing, right? So it's a divergent shape. So that shape actually defines how much amplification it can do. You try to go with a very high volume, sometimes you get some noise, some noise, right? So which means that the waves are not getting dispersed properly. Some opposition resistance is happening. So these are some loudspeakers that I've shown here, the real speakers. So we have modeled it. These are used in in the music also. In fact, very interesting applications are there where they are used for cleaning. You put something like this and you pass very high frequency wave, and then it can be used even for dusting and cleaning, such things. This was very surprising application for us. So we use this case to study it. So this is the model, just I'm explaining. This is how the wave gets passed, right? And then it gets dispersed. So depending on the shape of this thing, right, it is a symmetric thing. So which means I can take only this part and optimize. I don't have to take the entire thing. Just this line and this line, I can take it and optimize it. So that's what we have done. So I'll show you, right? So we have used this algorithm. Probably you people have heard it. There is an algorithm called teaching learning based optimization, TLBO algorithm. It is developed in India in one of the NITs by Professor R.V. Rao in 2011. Right, we have used that algorithm to optimize along with the isogeometric analysis. So in this analysis, not only, as I said, we only considered only on one portion, right? Because it is axisymmetric, right? One portion of it. And we have to consider how the wave is getting dispersed in the around. So this some domain around that we have to consider. Those who in thermal will be able to understand it much better, right? So around that, how the wave is getting dispersed, that we have considered, and we did this analysis. So all this entire domain is analysis domain. Now this entire domain is analysis, which we do into certain patches. This is patch 1, these two things together, patch 1, this patch 2, 3, 4, all these surface patches, basically 5 patches we divided into, and just able to divide into just 150 elements, and we written our entire code in the MATLAB, and then we calculated what is the the amplitude for a given wave. Our idea is to reduce the reflection part, right? I'll skip some of these details, and then our for a given frequency, a particular frequency of sound, if you give, so our optimization shows that this is the optimal shape. So this part is plain, so you can see how this has changed. Very little bit change it looks like, but then it has a big impact on the thing. So if there are bands, you see, if you go back to the previous case, there are some bands here. I mean, different color things. So you see here, so you have different bands here. The formation of the bands in the waveguide demonstrate the undesirable reflections, which means some waves are coming back. So this entire thing has to be, as much as possible, a single color should be visible. So you can see there is almost no bands are there in this entire zone. So that means it is good. The impedance is very, very less, right? So similarly, we can do it for the different frequencies. 550 hertz we have done the frequency, we have done these shapes, and then at different frequencies, if the sound comes at different 280, 400, 780, like this. And further, what we can do is, what if whatever your design, will it be good enough for different frequencies? That means multi-frequency, 2 frequencies or three frequencies. So what is shown here is a profile, only the profile part we are showing here, and the reflection we are shown. We are compared with many other published the papers which are based on the finite element method. They have published using genetic algorithm and finite element, using finite element and BFGS, which means a classical optimization method. Another method, we have compared it, and we have much better results. So the lower it is better. So all the red color things are ours. Red color things are our paper. The blue, black, pink color things are the others papers. You can see like we got much lower values compared to the other published papers, right? So there's some more results. I think I'll stop some of these, because these things cannot be explained in a short duration, very complex things. But I just want to give you a feel that how we can use these technologies, right, for better and better designs of very complex shape. So our achievements have been, IGA has been successfully applied to shape optimization. This TLBO algorithm is also new, and we applied in this case. And then in much less number of nodes, if you do same thing in the finite element analysis, you will need several thousands of nodes and elements. We are able to do it in much less number of degrees of freedom, and the obtained shapes are very smooth, because the NURBS, the non-uniform rational B-splines, they provide very smooth functions. And in the literature, people have failed to solve some cases, and in those cases also we're able to solve it, and hence we are able to get it published at a good place. So there is this top journal called Computer Aided Geometric Design, so where very selective papers gets published. And for this, in fact, we have collaborated with one Professor Khaja in University of Texas, and there is another professor called Professor Bodas in University of Luxembourg, because we are new to this acoustics and even isogeometric analysis. Also, we have learned something from these foreign collaborators, and we are able to publish this just last year, 2020, towards the end of the thesis, right? So that's it from my side, right? In the next lecture, I'll try to go into little more details of how finite element analysis works and all that. Okay, so it's 12 p.m. so I'll stop here. That's a scheduled time. You will have several things to do, right? So I'll not go further. Thank you. If there are any questions, 2-3 questions I will take in a few minutes. Right.
So can we do the same analysis in composite material?
Yes, definitely we can do it. Why not? Right? See, so here what we are doing is the reflection or whatever that impedance we are saying that should be minimized in the composite material also. So what are your variables? See, if you have different layers, right? Laminates, right? But there is so many combinations possible.
Okay.
So many combinations possible, and each layer thickness also will be different, right? So which is the best combination, and what kind of thickness is best? So many alternatives are there, no?
Okay.
Isn't it? So
Yes, sir.
so right. So if you know how to do analysis, right, of a certain combination, so that itself has to be done, iteratively so many times, and then you can come up with a better alternatives. In fact, you can search, right, isogeometric analysis or this design optimization of a composites. You will find good papers in it. I've seen some of these papers are there already.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Hari, in such
Yeah.
scenario, what will be the mechanical engineering features? And basically, we people like which are not so much senior and not so much junior. We are just feel ourselves like a sandwich material, because we are not understand the software well, and this is the time of software. So, what you will suggest for the mechanical engineers?
We have to upgrade, sir. I mean, see, one of my colleagues, a friend also, the vice president of the General Electric Aerospace, Uma Mahesh, like is our a close related to NIT Warangal also. So many times he came to campus and saying that this digital DNA is something we have to implant in mechanical engineers, future mechanical engineers. So without that, things cannot be done. Right. So this is required. Traditional mechanical engineering. A lot of this computational aspects has to come. And if they see, for example, I'll tell you, in 2021, this new education policy is there. So as far as NIT Warangal is concerned, we have significantly changed. So much resistance was also there from some quarters, but we significantly changed. Starting from first year itself, we want them to come out of this silo fixed thinking. We completely abolished common first year. First of all, first year is no more common to all the departments. From the first year itself, everybody is different. Okay, mechanical engineering students will be attached to the mechanical department. Civil will as a civil. Curriculum is completely different. For entire 4 years, student is with you. Okay, so from the beginning itself, we are now teaching kinematics in the second semester itself. We are teaching, we have introduced this new course called design thinking in the first year, first semester itself. In the first year, second semester itself, we have introduced something called design studio. In the first year itself, we want them to explore things like modeling, simulation, even 3D printing, and they will be able to do it if you let them do it. Otherwise, what was happening earlier, right? The first year of the engineering is like the third year of, it is like 13th class, 12th class tak ho gaya. Intermediate, yes. You are done. It was like one more intermediate, right? Like schooling again, same maths, physics, chemistry, these things were there. It was not a engineering flavor. So in the beginning itself, we are introducing them to the Python also, MATLAB also. So we want them to use all these technologies in their basic courses. For example, when they do kinematics, we want them to do simulations in the kinematics, not only do those velocity acceleration diagrams. Now we want them to do complete simulation of mechanisms and write programs for that. For example, we all know, right? Only for one configuration, let us say 4-bar link is there at some 30 degrees at some link 1, can you link 2, can you draw velocity diagram? That much we'll say. But what happens as I change the angle, what change will be there in the velocity diagram? When this Coriolis component will go bigger, when it will become smaller, what is happening? Can I have a dynamically changing velocity acceleration diagram as the mechanism is rotating? This can be done in 2-3 hours if you know little bit of MATLAB. And this has to be done in the kinematics course itself. I mean, the kinematics course will be kinematics, but the way we do will be different.
In lab itself.
Yeah, not only like theory course and the assignment, right?
Okay.
like earlier you were doing these drawings on paper, right? So now this digital, that's what we're saying, we have to pump these things in all our courses. Let's say now dynamics and dynamics course is there, vibration course is there itself, let them design, come up with a design, different designs for the shock absorber system. Let them simulate these things. Earlier I mean, see, even before calculator, people were doing hand calculations. Then they started doing calculators. Then they started doing ready-made softwares. Now time has come to further do further.
Okay.
So these changes we have to come in the curriculum. I mean, as teachers, we also have to upgrade ourselves and teach these things. Then only the employability, being up to the standard of the industry will be there. If we are lacking, what happens is that these things are updated in the computer science, sir. Mechanical, traditional, it's not updated, right? So that's why, even in small colleges, computer science people are able to get placed, but traditional engineering are not able to get placed, right?
Yes.
But in the same college, same level of teachers, in other branches, they are able to get placed because the syllabus is on par.
As you discussed in your talk regarding the syllabus design, alhamdulillah, I also got the opportunity to design syllabus for BTech and masters in machine design. So I also felt the same experience, because the people who are involved with me, they are not ready to change their mind.
Yes. Yeah, that is the change will always be difficult, sir. Change is the most
They are
difficult.
ready just to copy paste from abroad university and like that. So we are not ready to understand.
I think,
our
sir,
needs.
even as admin also, we have to innovate, sir. There also, let us say you are admin, sir. The people are not changing. I want to give high quality education to my students. What will be the solution? So, for example, we have come up with professor of practice position. I will invite an industry fellow to teach half a course. Right, in the same course, let the first teacher listen him. He will get inspired. Next time he will teach. That we have to understand that change is really difficult.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right. So all things can be done. We can, for example, in this revision, we have introduced 1 credit course also, 1.5 credit course also. Right. Let somebody who has good knowledge of let's say simulations in industry teach only 8 or 10 lectures, and let that it will be one third of a course.
But they are not ready to teach the subject. Basically, they are well in their job. But while we request them to please come and our platform and just deliver a lecture. So they are just no, we are not teaching well like this. Okay, then we will try. Second,
I mean, our experience says, and there are many people who wants to do it. So it depends on your connections. Yeah.
Second thing, Dr. Hari, like regarding the drawing, engineering drawing and machine drawing, that is, I think that is also a big failure of mechanical engineering. They consider the practical rather than the theory. So that's why the students are not taking care. So just
sir, these are interesting topics, but let me restrict to the talk part. These are very interesting. We can go on, right? Offline, we'll engage on that. Sir, somebody else is asking the questions related to the talk I have given.
Yeah. Sir, one generic query. Yes. Are your curriculum available online, sir?
It will be available, sir. Our final approval is pending. So we have, for last 2 or 3 months, we have spent like hundreds of hours on it. So in 2 weeks, we have our Senate meeting. So once it is approved in the Senate meeting, it will be put in the public domain, sir. As of now, whatever is available is old 2017 version. 21 version will be available from the, you can expect it in the September, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. That will be a great thing in direction, gives a direction in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In fact, what you said makes so much sense. When we invited BOS members, Board of Studies members from IIT Delhi, and we were having discussion. So one of the professors, was mentioning, and making us more responsive, say that, whatever you design, don't think that you're designing only for your 100 BTech students, because as premier institutes, whatever you design will be adopted by some more. So be careful. This kind of caution also we have taken, right? Yeah. Thank you, sir. But we have to be very flexible, sir, if you want to do new things.
Yeah. And one more last query, sir. NEP, regarding NEP, can you just briefly tell regarding syllabus revision?
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell, sir, if there are no other questions related to the topic, right? Because these are off topic. Yeah. Anybody has any questions related to whatever I presented?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello. Yeah.
Sir, are there any provisions in modern CAD softwares for costing and so on? Costing and what will be the cost of what for the manufacturer, what we are designing and all? Are they included in that particular software or?
I'm not sure. So I'm not sure about it. Whether cost estimation is there or not, but yeah, I do not know. Sorry. Yeah. Though I mentioned quite a bit about the software, I do not have too much expertise on the software. I work on the back end thing, mathematical modeling, simulation, writing our own codes, doing, programming. We work more on those aspects. I personally do not have expertise on the commercial softwares that are available, but I know that what is going on. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll stop it here. So I'll just answer that NEP question. So I am not an expert on the NEP, but whatever I understood, the idea is to encourage the student. First of all, the innovation element has to come in the curriculum. Innovation. Many of these things students do outside the curriculum, whether they are participating in some automotive competitions and some technical association competitions. I think some of these things has to come into the curriculum so that many people can do it. The innovation angle should come. And then the hands-on angle, like in the beginning, very early in the beginning. See, we say that student is not interested, but then they are spending so much time on many other things. You just ask him to participate in technical festival, they will work more than required. But how do we make them to work more than required on technical thing? That is what we have to provide, a lot of inspiration, opportunity to do things, and let them taste that, this is very working on technology innovation is very interesting. So let us provide those opportunities. As I said, some design and innovation things have to come. As I said, we introduce some design thinking, design innovation, design studio, those kind of the courses where student is left, there is no teaching, very minimal teaching. It's semester course, but it is not a course. No exam, no course. First student like it. No exam, no course, like no teaching, no course. But lot of involvement of the student is there for in the semester for something like 100 hours he has to spend, and there is a proper evaluation system. Let them come up with some, identify some need and come up with solution, and what the teacher will do is guide them throughout the process, right? Not 0 lectures, but some 5, 6 or 10 lectures will be there in the entire semester, maybe one in a week or so. And there can be talks by, entrepreneurs, innovators, startup companies, and these things, right? So innovation element has to come in the curriculum. And then they're also talking about multiple exits and multiple entries. I don't know in Indian situation will it will work or not. People can quit after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years with a diploma, higher diploma, and such things. Such provisions have to be given. And another thing, important thing that given is exposing the student to larger aspects of the life, whether it is exposure to some sociology subjects, humanities subjects. Student is graduating, but he doesn't have even a proper idea about how society functions. What is discipline? How do you talk, for example, to your teacher? They can't even write 5 simple straight sentences, whether like does not know how do you approach or how do you conduct in a meeting. So all these soft skills, broadening the thinking, having the big vision for the life. So all these, I think the humanities and social sciences subjects are given in a good emphasis in the NEP. And one important thing they've added is that adding these minors and honors. If a student of mechanical engineering wants to do a minor in computer science, or a student of metallurgy wants to do a minor in mechanical engineering or automobile engineering, he will be allowed to do it just by doing 6 extra courses or 7 extra courses. They can be given a major degree and minor degree, major in mechanical, minor in computer science, let's say like that. Or somebody is interested in studying more of a mechanical engineering, then he'll be given a honors degree. So I would say innovation is one, exposure to humanities kind of subject is the second thing, and then multiple entries and exits is another thing. This major honors is one more angle, and one more angle is having a very strong element with the industry in the form of internship, or permitting them to 6 months internship, that kind of thing. So these are the things we have considered in the NEP, but I guess these are developing things. with though the bigger framework is there, I think one by one we are going to implement. As of now, these many things we have implemented in our 2021 curriculum. Okay. Again, thank you. I'll stop here.
Design Studio, just briefly, can you just tell last point, sir? Thank you.
So we have basically two courses. One is called Design Thinking in the first year, first semester, and Design Studio in the first year, second semester, sir. So in Design Thinking is about how do you identify a need, right? How do you formulate that need into an engineering problem? How do you come up with concepts for that? How do you work out the details of that concept? So this much is the first part, Design Thinking. But once your concept is clear, your detailed design is there, how do you sketch it? How do you model it? How do you validate it? And finally, how do you make it into a physical a product? That is Design Studio. One is, you can say, entire modeling and conceptualization is first part, and product realization, you can say product realization is the second part. So these two courses together is one combination in the first year itself, because we want to excite them, enthuse them in the beginning itself.
Okay, thank you very much,
Yeah,
sir. Nice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I think we'll end the session here. Kishore, host. Yeah.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the host to end the session.
Sir.
Thank you.
Sir, just now I lost my connection. Sir,
Okay,
thank you,
no
sir.
problem.
It was
Yeah.
a very nice presentation, and I hope many participants will try to divert into the field of analysis.
Yeah.
Because this will, however, help in 3D printing and to manufacturing. Sir, thank you very much. And tomorrow we'll meet, sir.
Yeah, same time, right?
Same time, sir. Same time.
Thank you. Thank you.
sir.
Bye. Bye.
And dear participants, so we'll meet again in the second session, that is hands-on sessions at 2 p.m.